The sky was still and silent. It had been a clear day across Earth, with no hint of the chaos that was about to unfold. People went about their daily lives. Children played in the streets, workers filled the skyscrapers, and families gathered for dinner. The world had grown used to peace, to safety. But on that day, that fragile calm shattered in an instant. It started as a faint blip, a disturbance in the sky. At first, it was nothing more than a curiosity, a dot against the vast expanse of blue, a blemish in the otherwise perfect morning. But that blemish grew, expanding rapidly, until the sky was filled with something much darker, something no one could understand. The first reports were fragmented, confusing. A strange formation of ships had appeared in the Earth's orbit. At first, they weren't sure what to call them. They didn't resemble any spacecraft humanity had ever seen before. Their shapes were too complex, too alien, and the way they moved, slow, deliberate, felt ominous. These ships weren't arriving to trade or make contact. No, they were there for something else, and Earth had no idea what that was. Terror gripped the world as military leaders scrambled to make sense of the situation. Satellites locked on to the ships, trying to gather data, but the readings were unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. The ships were massive, each one several times the size of the largest vessels humanity had ever built. But even more unsettling was the feeling they gave off, a strange alien presence that seemed to hang in the air like a dark cloud. The governments of Earth acted swiftly. Nations that had once been at odds now came together in a rare show of unity. The UN called an emergency session. The world's greatest minds worked around the clock, but no one could figure out what the visitors wanted. There were no communications, no signals. The ships did nothing but hover, motionless. The tension was unbearable. Earth waited for what felt like an eternity. People speculated. Some thought it was a peaceful visitation, a new era of intergalactic diplomacy. Others feared the worst, an invasion. But whatever the truth was, it didn't matter. The uncertainty was worse than the threat itself. Hours passed, and then something changed. A massive beam of light shot from one of the alien ships, slicing through the atmosphere like a hot knife through butter. It struck without warning, without provocation. A flash of blinding light erupted in the distance, and the ground shook with such force that buildings rattled and windows shattered across entire cities. In an instant, one of Earth's largest cities was gone. The blast was so powerful that it left nothing but a crater where the city once stood, a smoking hole in the Earth's surface. The shockwave rippled outward, causing massive destruction in surrounding areas. People screamed in horror as they tried to comprehend what had just happened. It was a direct attack. There was no warning, no demands, just destruction. The world was in a state of panic. Military forces scrambled to respond. Weapons systems were activated. Fighter jets were scrambled, and people rushed to underground bunkers. Governments went into full emergency mode, trying to regain control of the situation. But it was clear now. The aliens weren't here to negotiate. News networks were flooded with reports, all repeating the same message. Earth had been attacked. A new enemy, one more powerful and advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered, had arrived. The attack on the city had been brutal and precise, and it was only the beginning. People tried to call their loved ones, but communication lines were down, and chaos was spreading faster than any government could handle. On the ground, panic spread like wildfire. People were confused, terrified, and desperate for answers. Families packed their cars, trying to flee the cities, but the roads were clogged with traffic. The alien ships loomed above, casting long shadows over the Earth, reminding everyone that there was nowhere to hide. As the dust settled from the initial attack, Earth's leaders were faced with a new, terrifying reality. They had no idea who or what they were facing. What kind of enemy could wipe out an entire city with a single shot? And why? What was their goal? In military command centers, officers worked tirelessly to piece together any information they could. But the data was sparse, and the alien technology was beyond anything humanity had ever seen. It was almost as if the ships had appeared out of nowhere, with no trace of their origins, no clues to their purpose. Elena Foster, one of Earth's top military strategists, sat in a high-security command room, staring at the live feed from the satellite overhead. Her hands trembled slightly as she studied the images of the alien ships, their size, their design. She'd been briefed on the situation just hours before the attack, but now everything seemed different. Earth had never faced an enemy like this, and that made her feel more helpless than she'd ever felt in her life. She knew that Earth had only one chance to respond. She didn't know if it was a chance to survive, or just a chance to die fighting. "We need to make contact," Elena said to the officers around her voice steady, but her mind racing. "We need to understand what they want, what they're capable of. We can't just attack blindly." One of the officers turned to her, his face pale. "We tried that, ma'am." No response. They didn't even acknowledge our presence until they fired. Whatever their intent is, they're not here to talk. Elena's gaze hardened. "Then we need to prepare for war. We'll do it the hard way." The order was given. Across the globe, Earth's military forces mobilized, weapons were readied, and defensive positions were set up. But deep down, Elena knew that no matter how prepared they were, the battle ahead would be unlike anything they had ever imagined. They were facing an alien race that had wiped out a city in seconds, with no explanation, no mercy. The world watched in silence as the alien ships hovered, waiting. The next move was up to Earth. It had to be quick, or the Earth could be lost. But what if they weren't ready? What if Earth's might wasn't enough? As the seconds ticked away, a new voice echoed over the military channels. A new order. "Strike first." The commander's voice crackled through the comms. And Earth responded with everything it had. But the first missile fired from Earth's defenses was intercepted with terrifying ease. A wall of light enveloped the alien ships, stopping the missile mid-flight, causing it to disintegrate before it even reached them. It was clear that Earth's weapons were no match for the advanced alien technology. Then, another beam of light, another city destroyed. The Earth had been struck once again. And this time, the world knew. The fight for survival had only just begun. Humanity's fury would rise, but first, they had to find a way to fight back. Would they be able to turn the tide? Or would this be the day that the stars would remember the fall of humanity? As Earth's defense forces scrambled in desperation, humanity's panic was replaced with something else, a cold, hard determination. The shock of the initial attack had rattled them. But now, a fire was igniting deep within the hearts of every person. This was no longer just a battle for survival. This was a fight for their right to exist. Captain Elena Foster, still stationed in the underground command center, stared at the holographic displays flashing before her. The alien ships remained silent in orbit, but their power was undeniable. Every failed missile launch, every strike against Earth's defenses, had shown them one painful truth. They were no match for the alien forces, at least not yet. It wasn't just the size of the ships or their advanced weaponry that made them dangerous. It was their ability to predict and counter everything Earth had thrown at them. "Ma'am," one of the officers broke her concentration. "The world is looking to us. They want answers. What do we tell them?" Elena looked up, her face grim. "Tell them the truth," she said, her voice steady despite the weight on her shoulders. "Tell them we're not going down without a fight." There was no time for hesitation. The military had to act, but they also had to think differently. The idea of launching another missile, sending fighter jets into space to face the aliens directly, was no longer an option. The aliens had proven that they were far more advanced than humanity in almost every way. Every conventional tactic they knew was rendered useless in the face of this new enemy. Elena walked over to the tactical board, her fingers brushing against the cool surface as she considered their options. The board showed satellite images of the alien fleet, hovering just outside the atmosphere. From Earth's perspective, it seemed like an unstoppable wall of destruction. But Elena wasn't about to give up hope just yet. "We need to outthink them," she muttered to herself. "We can't just play their game." The rest of the team fell silent, watching Elena as she formulated a plan. She wasn't just a strategist. She was a leader, and if anyone could figure out how to outmaneuver the aliens, it was her. The only problem was, she had no idea what this enemy truly wanted, and that uncertainty made every decision feel like a shot in the dark. Meanwhile, across the globe, people were beginning to realize that this wasn't a short-term crisis. The aliens weren't here just to conquer. They were here to show their power, to break humanity's spirit. The attack on the city was only the beginning. As Elena sat down at her console, she began reviewing every bit of intelligence they had managed to gather. The data was sparse, but one thing stood out. The alien ships didn't just appear out of nowhere. They had been coming for a long time. The signals, once faint, had been detected months ago by an observatory in South America. But because they were so weak, the signals had been dismissed. Nobody had thought to dig deeper. Nobody had thought to listen. Now they were paying the price for their oversight. Elena's mind raced as she realized the significance of the information. "They've been here longer than we thought," she said aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "The ships, they were never just waiting. They've been preparing." The officer next to her looked confused. "Preparing for what?" Elena turned to him, her eyes sharp. "They knew we would respond. They knew Earth would try to fight back. This attack wasn't a random strike. It was a message. A warning." What kind of warning? Elena took a deep breath, looking at the holographic display once more. "That no matter what we do, we are not prepared for them. They've been testing us, watching us." The officer's face paled. "You're saying they want us to try and fight? To provoke us?" "Yes," Elena nodded. "They want us to think we have a chance, just enough to make us fight with everything we have. And then they'll crush us when we're at our most desperate. They're waiting for us to show them how far we'll go." "But why?" The officer's voice quivered. "Why do they care?" Elena didn't have an answer. It was the question on everyone's mind. But there was one thing she knew for certain. The aliens weren't here to play. This was a game of survival, and if humanity didn't find a way to turn the tables, Earth might not survive. A loud beep interrupted her thoughts. The console blinked, and an incoming transmission appeared on the screen. The voice that followed was distorted, but unmistakably human. "Elena, Elena Foster, do you hear me?" It was a familiar voice. General Samuel Jenkins, one of the highest-ranking military leaders on Earth. Elena's heart skipped a beat. "We're listening, General," she said quickly, her voice laced with tension. "Good," Jenkins replied. "We've just received intel. A team of engineers has found something that might help us turn the tide." Elena leaned forward. "What is it?" "It's an ancient technology. Something buried deep beneath the Earth's surface, off the coast of South America. It's not from our time, not from any civilization we know. But it's powerful, perhaps more powerful than anything we've ever seen." A flicker of hope sparked in Elena's chest. "How soon can we access it?" "We're already mobilizing a team," Jenkins said. "But there's a catch. The location is heavily guarded by the alien ships. We can't just waltz in there." Elena nodded, a fire lighting in her eyes. "We'll need to take the fight to them. We can't wait any longer. If we want a shot at winning, we have to act now." The decision was made quickly. Elena's team would lead the charge to recover the alien technology. They didn't have much time, and they had no idea how strong the alien defenses might be, but it was their only option. As the team prepared to move out, the weight of the mission settled heavily on Elena's shoulders. She had spent her entire career preparing for battles, for wars, but this was different. This was the fight for the future of humanity itself. There was no room for failure. As the ships carrying Elena and her team lifted off the ground, leaving the chaos of the command center behind, She glanced out the window. Earth's cities were burning, smoke rising into the sky. The alien ships hung in the distance, like dark giants watching over the planet. But Alina knew one thing. They hadn't broken humanity's will. The fight was just beginning. In the depths of the ocean, buried beneath centuries of history, the key to humanity's survival lay waiting. And Alina Foster was determined to find it, no matter the cost. The clock was ticking, and the world's fate rested in their hands. Would they find the power they needed to strike back? Or was Earth destined to become another conquered planet, forgotten by the stars? The next few hours would determine everything. The world watched in silent horror as the first human counterattack failed miserably. The alien ships, hovering ominously above Earth, had been waiting for humanity's response, and humanity had given them everything they had. Missiles fired from Earth's defense stations were intercepted and vaporized in an instant. Fighter jets, desperate to engage, were torn apart by energy blasts before they could even close the distance. It was clear, humanity was no match for the alien technology. Yet, despite the devastating failure, Alina Foster knew that they couldn't stop now. If Earth was going to have any hope of surviving, they needed to outthink the aliens, not just outfight them. It was the only way. Alina was back in the command center, staring at the chaotic readouts on the screen, trying to make sense of it all. The alien fleet had been quiet after their devastating strike. They didn't need to do anything else. The message had been received loud and clear. But Alina had a feeling the aliens were playing a much bigger game, one they still didn't fully understand. She ran her fingers over her chin, deep in thought. The last thing she wanted was for the humans to react impulsively, to make decisions based on fear. But in the wake of the failure, fear had begun to spread like wildfire. How could humanity fight something they didn't even comprehend? Her mind kept returning to the strange artifact buried beneath the Earth's surface, the one General Jenkins had mentioned. It was their last chance. Alina had no idea what kind of weapon it could be, but it was their only lead, the only piece of the puzzle that might shift the odds in their favor. The mission to recover the artifact had been given top priority. Her team was ready to move out. But the more she thought about it, the more Alina realized just how dangerous the entire situation was. They were essentially sending soldiers into the unknown. The alien fleet had surrounded the site, making it almost impossible to approach without facing annihilation. But the team didn't have the luxury of waiting for the perfect plan. The longer they delayed, the more the aliens would tighten their grip on Earth. "Commander Foster," a voice broke through her thoughts. It was Lieutenant Garcia, one of her most trusted officers. "The team's prepped and ready. We can't afford any delays. The aliens are closing in on the perimeter. We need to move now." Alina nodded, standing up from her seat. "All right, get everyone in position. We're going in." Minutes later, Alina and her team were aboard the stealth transport ship that would carry them to the coordinates of the buried artifact. The ship was designed to avoid detection, but she knew that even with their best efforts, the alien fleet could likely detect them at any moment. The stakes were high, and failure was not an option. Not this time. As the ship launched into the sky, Alina peered out the window. The alien ships were still suspended above Earth, casting long, dark shadows over the planet. The closer they got to the artifact's location, the more the tension grew. Every time the ship's sensors beeped, every time a shadow passed overhead, Alina's heart raced. They were being hunted. Her mind wandered to the unknown technology that they were about to recover. Was it really as powerful as they hoped? Could it be their ticket to survival? Or was it just another trap? Another game designed to make them play by the aliens' rules? "Ma'am, we're approaching the target area," Garcia called from the cockpit. "We'll need to move fast once we touch down." Alina nodded. She had no idea what kind of security the aliens had placed around the site, but she knew it wouldn't be easy to breach. Every step of the way could lead to disaster. But the mission was too important, too critical. They couldn't afford to back down now. As the transport ship descended toward the surface, Alina felt her grip tighten on the armrest. The landscape below was barren, rocky terrain, a far cry from the bustling cities they had just days before. The contrast between the once vibrant world and the devastation below was like a punch to the gut. The ship landed with a soft thud, the engines humming to a stop. The doors opened, revealing the cold, desolate landscape. Alina and her team disembarked, quickly taking cover behind the transport. They were outside now, in enemy territory, and every moment spent in the open felt like a lifetime. "Move out," Alina commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "Stay low. Stick together." The team made its way through the rocky landscape, their steps muffled by the thick dust underfoot. The alien ships were still overhead, but there was no sign of any immediate attack. Alina's mind raced, her thoughts clouded by a mix of urgency and doubt. They were getting close to the artifact, and yet the feeling of being watched, of being hunted, was inescapable. 30 meters to the site, Garcia whispered, looking over his shoulder. They came to a small ridge and huddled together, peering over the edge. Below them was the entrance to a cave system, an ancient structure hidden beneath the surface for centuries. It was unlike anything humanity had ever built. The entrance was wide, enough to accommodate large equipment, but the walls were covered in strange symbols, designs that Alina didn't recognize. This was no ordinary cave. "This is it," Alina whispered. "Stay sharp." They moved into the cave, the air growing colder with each step. The walls were smooth, and the floor was marked with strange grooves, as if something had been moved through the area long ago. As they ventured deeper into the cave, the glow of their lights revealed more symbols, more markings. This wasn't just an old structure. It was something far more advanced, far more significant than anything they had ever encountered. Suddenly, a distant hum echoed through the cave. Alina's heart skipped a beat. The sound was faint, but unmistakable. It was a signal, something coming to life. "Hold up," Alina commanded, signaling the team to stop. They listened, every nerve on edge. The hum grew louder, reverberating through the walls. And then, a light flashed ahead, bright, blue, and powerful. It illuminated the chamber ahead, revealing a massive machine, unlike anything they had ever seen. It was a relic, buried for millennia. And now, it was awakening. "Is this it?" Garcia asked, his voice low. Alina stared at the glowing structure before her breath catching in her throat. This was it, the artifact, the key to their survival. But before she could answer, the ground trembled beneath them. A low, rumbling sound echoed from the distance. The alien ships had found them, and they were not going to let them take the artifact without a fight. The team braced for what was coming next. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. The rumble beneath their feet grew stronger, shaking the walls of the cave with increasing intensity. Alina's heart raced as she turned to her team, their faces lit by the eerie glow of the alien artifact. Time was running out. The alien ships were closing in. They could feel the air vibrating with an unnatural hum, and it wasn't just from the alien machines above. This was something more, something far more dangerous. "Alina," Garcia's voice was tight with urgency. "The artifact, it's alive. It's powering up." Alina nodded, her breath quickening. "We don't have time to figure it out. We need to extract it now and get out before they launch another strike. Move." The team surged forward, their weapons raised and eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of alien interference. They had to act quickly, but as they neared the artifact, the air around them seemed to grow heavier, more oppressive. It wasn't just the alien ships looming overhead now. It was the artifact itself. It pulsed with an almost organic energy, its blue light casting strange, flickering shadows across the cave walls. "Ready to extract," Lieutenant Garcia said, his voice tense as he knelt beside the glowing object. "Whatever this thing is, we need to get it back to the command center. Fast." Alina glanced at the rest of the team. Their eyes were filled with a mix of awe and dread. This was humanity's last chance. Whatever this ancient technology was, it could be the key to winning the war. But even as they prepared to move it, a new sound echoed through the cave. A sharp, metallic screech, followed by the unmistakable hum of an energy beam charging. The team froze. "Get down," Elena barked. As they dove for cover, the ceiling above them trembled violently. A blinding light shot from above, a piercing beam of energy that sliced through the rock like it was paper. It scorched the walls and left cracks running deep into the cave's structure. The shockwave sent dust and debris flying, and the team struggled to hold their ground as the cave began to collapse around them. "We've got to move now," Elena shouted, barely able to hear herself over the roar of the destruction. They scrambled to their feet, quickly grabbing the artifact's containment unit and securing it to a hover cart that had been brought in for extraction. But the alien attack was relentless. Another pulse of light came, this time stronger, knocking them off balance. The artifact flared brighter in response, almost as if it were reacting to the alien assault. "Elena, we're not going to make it if we stay here," Garcia yelled, pulling her toward the exit. But Elena hesitated, her eyes locked on the artifact. It had begun to hum louder, its glow growing more intense. Something was happening, something they weren't prepared for. "It's not just a weapon," she muttered under her breath. "It's a conduit." "What?" Garcia snapped, pulling her back toward the exit. "We need to go now." But Elena's mind was racing. She could feel it, deep in her bones. The artifact was more than just a weapon of destruction. It was a bridge, a channel, something that connected to the alien technology in ways that they couldn't understand. It wasn't just about survival. It was about understanding what the aliens wanted. The ground shook again, but this time, Elena didn't flinch. "Wait," she shouted. "We need to tap into it. This could be our chance to turn the tide." Garcia pulled at her arm, urging her forward. "We don't have time. We need to leave now." But Elena pushed him away, her eyes fixed on the glowing artifact. It was calling to her. She could feel it pulling at her, urging her to make the connection. Her mind spun with questions, but one thing was clear. This artifact, this technology, wasn't just a defense, it was an opportunity. "Just give me a minute," Elena said through gritted teeth. "I need to see what it can do." The team was already moving toward the exit, but they were too far gone now. The blast from the alien ship had made it impossible to escape through the main tunnel. The exit had collapsed, trapping them deep underground. "We're trapped," Garcia said, his voice rising in panic. "We need to find another way out. Now." Elena ignored him, crouching beside the artifact, her fingers brushing against the cool surface. The hum grew louder, the energy radiating from it felt almost sentient, like it was alive, waiting for something. A command. A choice. Elena's mind was racing. But she knew one thing. This was her only shot. She pressed her hand against the artifact's smooth surface, and a rush of energy surged through her, sending a shockwave of power up her arm. The world around her seemed to slow, then pulse, as if everything in the cave was aligned with the artifact's strange force. The walls vibrated, and the glow intensified. "Elena!" "No," Garcia shouted, running toward her. But Elena barely heard him. In that instant, the connection between her and the artifact was complete, and her entire body felt like it was being flooded with information, alien knowledge, power, and purpose. It was as if the universe itself opened up to her, showing her the vast, interconnected web of the galaxy. And then a realization struck her. The aliens weren't invincible. They were a species, just like humanity, with their own weaknesses, their own fears, but they had mastered technology in ways humans couldn't even begin to understand. The artifact. It was a key, not just to weaponry, but to a greater understanding of the alien fleet. It could turn the tide in humanity's favor, if only they could harness its true power. "Elena, get away from it," Garcia shouted again, But Elena could barely hear him. She was too focused on the stream of knowledge flowing through her. But the next pulse of energy changed everything. The cave shuddered violently as another energy blast from the alien ship struck the entrance, causing the tunnel to collapse further, sealing off their only exit. "Elena, please," Garcia cried, as dust and debris filled the air. With the last of her strength, Elena broke the connection with the artifact, staggering back toward her team. The glow of the machine began to fade, and the cave's tremors stopped, leaving only the echoes of silence. "We have to get out of here," Elena said, her voice hoarse as she looked at her team. "We've learned enough. It's time to make our move." The team, still shaken but focused, nodded. There was no time to waste. Elena led them through the collapsed tunnel, praying that the artifact's power would be enough to help them survive, and to fight back against the alien menace above. But one thing was certain now. The real war had only just begun. They had a chance. A real chance to win. But only if they used the alien technology wisely. With the team now in full retreat, they moved with urgency, ready to take their knowledge and fight the invaders that threatened to destroy Earth. Outside, the alien ship still loomed, waiting, and humanity's greatest battle was about to unfold. The team emerged from the depths of the cave, breathless and covered in dust, their hearts pounding in their chests. The once silent, desolate landscape now felt like a war zone. The dark sky overhead, streaked with the ominous glow of alien ships, hung like a suffocating blanket. Elena Foster felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The artifact was their key, but now they had to figure out how to use it, before the aliens realized what they had discovered. "We're not safe yet," Elena said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion in her bones. "We need to move quickly, get back to base. The sooner we get that artifact to the scientists, the better." Garcia nodded, his face set in grim determination. He was always the first to follow orders, but even he could feel the tension in the air. Every moment they stayed out in the open was a risk. They weren't sure if the alien ships had detected their escape, but Elena knew they couldn't afford to take chances. Every step they took was one closer to being hunted down. They scrambled into their transport ship, the heavy doors closing with a finality that sent a shiver through Elena. The hum of the engines filled the air as the craft lifted off the ground, and they shot into the sky, leaving the smoking ruins of the cave behind them. As they ascended, Elena looked out the window at the alien ships, hovering in the distance, their dark forms blocking out the stars. The silence in the cockpit was deafening, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's systems. The weight of their discovery was sinking in, but there was no time for relief. They had no idea what they had just unlocked, but Elena knew they were on the verge of something monumental. "Once we're back at the command center, we'll hand the artifact off to the scientists," she said, trying to steady her nerves. "We need to figure out how to use it, how it can be weaponized, or if it's a piece of the puzzle we're missing." "But Elena," Garcia spoke up, his voice tinged with worry. "What if they're already watching us? What if they're tracking the artifact? If they know we've got it, it's a matter of time before they come for us." Elena looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "We're not just going to sit back and wait for them. We'll make them come to us. This artifact is our advantage now. We'll use it to strike back." But even as she spoke with resolve, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to the artifact, something more to the aliens' intentions. They hadn't just attacked Earth randomly. They had been waiting for something, maybe for humanity to reach a breaking point, maybe for them to uncover this very artifact. Whatever the reason, it wasn't over. It had only just begun. The transport ship finally broke through the atmosphere, entering Earth's orbit, and the command center came into view. A massive structure floating above the planet, a hub for humanity's final line of defense. The tension was palpable as the ship docked with the center's outer bay. Elena's mind raced as she tried to anticipate the next steps. They had a precious opportunity, but if they wasted it, they could lose everything. Inside the command center, Scientists and engineers were already waiting, their faces grim but eager. The news of their discovery had spread fast, and everyone knew this could be the turning point in the war. Alina was the first to step off the transport, the artifact secured in a protective case beside her. The team followed, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and apprehension. Alina led them to the main briefing room, where a group of military officials and top scientists gathered around a large holographic table. "Ma'am, we've been monitoring the alien fleet's movements," General Jenkins greeted her, his voice low. "They've pulled back for now, but we can't tell if they're preparing for a bigger assault or just waiting for the right moment to strike." Alina nodded, placing the artifact on the table. "We have something that could give us the edge, but we need to figure out how to use it. It's an alien artifact. We don't know its full potential yet, but it's far beyond anything we've ever encountered." The scientists leaned in, their faces lit with awe as they examined the artifact. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. The surface was smooth, but its energy pulsed with an almost sentient hum. Alina could feel the faint vibrations of it even from where she stood, like it was calling to her. "This technology," one of the scientists spoke up, his voice reverberating with excitement. "It's not just alien, it's ancient. This is far beyond anything our civilization has developed. Whoever built this was thousands, perhaps millions of years ahead of us." Alina's heart skipped a beat. Could this artifact hold the key to defeating the aliens? She didn't know, but she couldn't afford to wait and find out. "We need to access its power. Whatever it is, we need to turn it into a weapon." Another scientist, a woman with short black hair and glasses, studied the artifact more closely. "We can't just use it like a conventional weapon. We need to learn how it works. We need to understand its energy signature. But to do that, we need more time." General Jenkins, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "We don't have time. The aliens will be back soon, and when they return, we need to be ready." Alina turned toward him. "Then we need to make sure this artifact is a weapon we can use to stop them." The room fell into a tense silence. Everyone in the room knew how critical the situation was. If they didn't figure out how to harness the artifact's power, humanity's chances of survival were slim. But if they could somehow turn this ancient technology into a weapon, it might be enough to stop the alien invaders in their tracks. Alina's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden burst of static from the communications panel, a transmission from Earth's space fleet. "Commander Foster," the voice on the other end crackled. "We've detected something massive approaching. It's another alien ship, but this one's different. It's bigger, and it's heading directly for Earth." A chill ran down Alina's spine. The aliens had sent a larger ship, one that could be far more dangerous than anything they had seen before. "We're ready," she said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "Prepare to engage. I'm bringing the artifact to the front lines." With that, she turned to her team. "Let's move. This is it. The final push. Whatever happens, we can't back down now. Humanity's future is in our hands." The weight of the moment hung heavy over them as they moved toward the war room. They were about to face the alien fleet head-on. They didn't know what the artifact could do, but they had no choice but to find out. The fate of Earth rested on their shoulders. The final battle was coming. And this time, humanity would be the one to make the first move.